Al Jazeera podcasts.
Today, the first Arab leader to visit President Donald Trump.
Everybody wants the king to stand his ground, and I don't think he can afford not to.
Can the King of Jordan stand up to the U.S. and stand for millions of Palestinians in Gaza? I'm Kevin Hirten, and this is The Take. On Tuesday, Jordan's King Abdullah met with Donald Trump. Now, the background was stark. A week earlier, in the wake of an ongoing genocide in Gaza, Trump proposed clearing out the enclave and relocating Palestinians living there to neighboring countries, including Jordan, or risk losing $1.5 billion in U.S. aid. Jordan is already home to over 2 million Palestinians. So we got on the line with one of them, one who is also Al Jazeera's correspondent there.
My name is Noor Odeh. I'm joining you from Amman because I'm reporting out of there for Al Jazeera after Israel and the Palestinian Authority banned us from reporting from inside Israel and the occupied West Bank.
And we had a chance to watch this very tense meeting play out in real time.
Why should the king take in the Palestinian people? He's made clear he doesn't want to.
Well, I don't know, but he may have just something to say because we discussed just briefly.
I think we sort of know where this is going.
With Egypt, I think you're going to see some great progress. I think with Jordan, you're going to see some great progress. Three of us, and we'll have some others helping, and we're going to have some others at a very high level helping, and the whole thing will come. It's not.
What are your just give me your immediate reaction to what you just heard?
So look, the problem that is so upsetting about Trump when you hear him speak from a Palestinian perspective, from a Jordanian perspective, from an Arab perspective, is that he talks about Palestinians as if they are just a bunch of people, a group of people who have no national identity, who have no roots to this land, who have no cause, and they can just be moved, relocated, as if they're tenants of a building that just collapsed, and he's trying to figure out a solution. And to hear him speak in that colonial tone is extremely upsetting, knowing, of course, full well that he is a bully and that the world fears him because of that. And so every world leader is tiptoeing around Trump. Nobody wants to upset him. Nobody wants to appear as if they are contradicting them.
A reporter asked Trump, some people say this is ethnic cleansing, and Trump responded,
The Palestinians, or the people that live now in Gaza, will be living beautifully in another location. They're going to be living safely. They're not going to be killed, murdered, and having to leave every 10 years.
I guess one of those locations might be Jordan, which has the highest number of Palestinian refugees already in the world. Can you give us some background there on how this came to be and just how important the Palestinian community is in Jordan?
Well, look, Jordan's story and Palestine's story are so interconnected. This is a country that was born close to the Nakba, and when the Nakba happened, when the ethnic cleansing of Palestine began in 1947, 1948, the vast majority, the influx of Palestinian refugees came to Jordan, which historically had relations with Palestine. They were, family relations by marriage. Throughout history, there are trading routes that, you can go back thousands of years. So there was always that connection in a way that is impossible to untangle. Not just those living in the refugee camps, but others who are naturalized Jordanian citizens who identify very proudly, not just as Jordanians, but also as Palestinians. And this is a very sensitive issue for Jordan, for the kingdom itself. And in the back of everybody's mind in Jordan is what the right wing in Israel has always said, which is that let's use Jordan as a replacement for Palestine. And that is why what Trump is proposing for Gaza is not out of the box at all. And it's not novel, and it's not unique, and it's not even smart. It's actually just a recycled pipe dream of the Israeli right, which, was set on the fringes and is now mainstream by the White House.
Yeah, which is in Trump's ear. Clearly, we know who's advising him.
Absolutely.
Let me just ask you about what's being asked of Jordan specifically to just suddenly absorb possibly hundreds of thousands of people. Now, this is a country of only about 11 million people. So infrastructure aside, I mean, how are people reacting to this demand? How are you as a Palestinian processing this demand?
I mean, for me, what upsets me the most is that Palestinians are being treated as if they are, rootless tenants, people occupying prime real estate who need to be moved away so that the property can be developed. For Jordan, what this means, no matter what the amount of people they're asked to absorb is political disaster. Because this is not just about logistics. This is about Jordan actively participating in the erasure of Palestine. That is what Jordan and Egypt are being asked to do by Trump. I mean, Egypt, for example, is a huge country. 1, 2, 3 million people, it can absorb them, logistically speaking. But what it would do if it acquiesces is basically be partners in the erasure of Palestine. It would be undoing and upending decades of firm Arab policy, firm Arab stand, and also of international law, because this would be ethnic cleansing. There's just no way around it. And to accept it in Gaza means that you're going to accept it somewhere else, namely the West Bank, where already tens of thousands of people are being displaced internally. And the right wing in Israel wants the West Bank. Ideologically speaking, it's far more important to them than anywhere else in historical Palestine.
There's an extortion quality to this conversation between Trump and King Abdullah. In 1994, Jordan signed a peace deal with Israel that also opened up the door to U.S. aid. Trump clearly sees this aid as a key point of leverage. Jordan is struggling economically because of the war as it is. Yeah. Just how important is this aid money for the kingdom?
It's very important because Jordan has always been the place of stability, right? This is a refuge for the peoples of the region. Jordan took in Iraqis when Iraq was under attack. It took in Lebanese when Lebanon was under attack. It took in Syrians. This is a place that Arabs have always traditionally been able to count on for their hospitality, for their stability, despite the fact that they have a struggling economy. The extortion component of Trump's approach, I think, is very important because he understands that Jordan will be hurting. But as one former official told me here, we have to, this is not about balancing between money and a political favor. This is, what do we take the money or do we fight for our existence? And the answer has to be Jordan has to defend its existence and its national interests. Another person compared it to weaning off a child from taking milk, from taking the bottle. So Jordan will have to adjust, one former official told me. That's how drastic, that's how far mainstream in Jordan is willing to go to oppose what Trump is proposing, because they understand just how far-reaching the consequences would be.
Yeah, this meeting, these extraordinary images of Trump just sort of talking seemingly off the top of his head and the king next to him, while Trump says things that are just so offensive to, presumably to the king.
It's not a complex thing to do. And with the United States being in control of that piece of land, a fairly large piece of land, you're going to have stability in the Middle East for the first time.
What can you tell us about the king, his personality? I mean, you could see he was a pain.
What do you think about the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip? Do you want to see the U.S. own the Gaza Strip?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States.
But he's very well respected. He's a very able statesman.
He is. And over the past 16 months, Jordan has taken center stage in speaking to the rest of the world, speaking to the West, also about the plight of the Palestinians.
The unprecedented scale of terror unleashed on Gaza since that day is beyond any justification. The Israeli government's assault has resulted in one of the fastest death rates in recent conflicts, one of the fastest rates of starvation caused by war, the largest cohort of child amputees, and unprecedented levels of destruction.
So this is a man who knows how to say, to speak diplomatically, but I agree, he did look pained because this is very difficult, and this is just the beginning of their meeting.
Yeah, I mean, Trump clearly sees the aid money as his key source of leverage, but I wonder, does Jordan also have leverage? I mean, one of the things about that peace deal from 1994 is that it recognizes Jordan's role as a custodian of holy sites in occupied East Jerusalem. And also, Jordan is a key ally in the region for the United States. Does Jordan have any way of pushing back and flexing its muscle here?
Well, one can argue that it does. The problem is with Trump is that you don't know how things are going to turn out, right? The traditional, predictable calculus of politics just kind of goes out the window. The U.S. depends on Jordan for its cooperation, for being right in the middle of everything.
So does Israel.
And so does Israel. Jordan has a long border with Israel. Allowing Jordan to be destabilized in this manner puts all of that at risk. Are they willing to risk all of that? And really, the answer with Trump's administration in power is elusive because you just don't know what they're going to do.
One of the key pieces of news that came out of this meeting was the king agreeing to take in 2,000 children from Gaza.
I think one of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in a very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on the Gaza challenges.
I didn't know that, what you just said, 2,000 children with cancer or other problems, and that's really a beautiful gesture.
What do you make of this development?
Well, I mean, it highlights what Jordan has been doing for 16 months now, which is to provide medical aid for Gaza, to airlift a lot of the injured, the critically injured, especially the amputee children, and provide them with prosthetic limbs. Already, Jordan has 2 field hospitals in Gaza. And they have a whole program for prosthetic limbs. So this was, I think, the king's way of kind of highlighting something positive that he can engage Trump with, something they can agree on. But it is not news to everybody else who's been following, because that's one of the things that Jordan has done quite an impressive job with.
More with Noor after a break. Noor, this is a conversation between 2 leaders, King Abdullah and President Trump, but it's being monitored all over the world. How is this going to play with leaders in the region? How closely are they watching every single second of this?
Oh, they're watching it like a hawk, because King Abdullah is the first Arab leader to visit Washington, right? And so everybody's going to watch how this plays out. In order to figure out whether they want to visit Washington at this point or not. And at the same time, the Arab League is preparing for a summit at the end of the month after the king's visit, after the foreign minister of Egypt has concluded his visit to Washington, after all the phone calls from various capitals in the region are done. There is concern all around because what is being said and what is being done, it's happening too fast. It is very dramatic, and it really upends everything that this region has been built on in terms of political thinking, in terms of strategy, in terms of national security doctrine even. not just for Jordan and Egypt, but really for everybody else.
This plan that Trump is proposing seems so unfeasible. It seems so crazy to so many people, but it is a plan. And that's one of the problems, right? Do you think that this could put pressure on other countries like Saudi Arabia, for instance, to propose an alternative that would actually rebuild Gaza for Palestinians?
You know, the problem with American foreign policy, I have to say, is that there's always been a plan. There's always been a very straight line from where we are to where we should be, which is no war, no war crimes. And that is to end Israel's illegal control of Palestine and the Palestinians. But U.S. foreign policy is so focused on not looking at that, on ignoring that, and always pretending that there has to be another novel solution that somehow involves giving Israel everything it wants while also completely ignoring and erasing Palestinian rights, Palestinian existence, Palestinian humanity. And the Arabs since 2002 presented a plan, the Arab Peace Initiative, right? They offered Israel the mother of all bribes, if you will. End your occupation, withdraw to the internationally recognized borders, and we will normalize relations with you. Not just the Arabs, but all the Muslim countries too, 57 countries in all. And that's not enough. That's not enough, not for Trump, certainly not for the right wing in Israel. And I have to say that it's not just America's fault, right? There's a lot to say, I think, for the shortcomings of the rest of the world, namely for Europe, which devised this international system after World War II, which shoved human rights and international law down the throats of every developing nation, except when it comes to Israel, right? And so this Israel exception is unraveling now this whole system. And Europe is watching, sometimes making a good statement here or there, but not really defending the system that it built over the past 80 years. And now you have a bully in the White House. And that bully is taking a sledgehammer and just tearing it all down.
Yeah, this discussion at the White House assumes that the war is actually over. But at the moment, Hamas is refusing to send back more Israeli captives. Israel has violated the terms of the ceasefire repeatedly. Now Netanyahu is saying the war will continue if Israeli captives are not released by Saturday at noon. This ceasefire is hanging by a thread. Do you think that events might quickly overtake the discussions that we're having here?
I fear they might, yes. The fact that Palestinians are not dying of bombs doesn't mean that there isn't a war being waged on them. There's still malnutrition. They're still not getting enough aid. They still have no way to lift the rubble so that they can recover the remains of their loved ones and bury them. Ultimately, I think that, for Trump, these paths all lead to the same end result that he's talking about, making billions for his friends and perhaps in-laws and bringing peace, as he said, right? It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be great. And we'll just move Palestinians somewhere else.
Peace in the Middle East will be achieved by the U.S. occupying Gaza, clearing Gaza, and then redeveloping it. That's the timeline. That's what's happening right now, Nour.
Yeah. And you know what? I keep wondering, where is everybody? Yeah, like in Washington. Okay, I understand that this is Trump and how Trump works. But where's everybody else? And it's not about, taking a punch at Trump, because there's a lot of that in Washington. But, I'm talking about the voice of sanity. Calling what Trump is doing or saying ludicrous, I think, is not just misleading. It's making light of the gravity of what he's proposing. To me, that's concerning. And I think to a lot of people around the world, when you don't really hear a coherent, thoughtful response or counter policy within Congress, for example, or within the halls of politics in Washington to what this man is saying, it makes you wonder, right? Where is everybody else?
Yeah, Nour, I think you're absolutely right that to dismiss this as ludicrous really diminishes what he's actually saying, which is just the dictionary definition of ethnic cleansing, which is a violation of international law, full stop. And I guess maybe we could end on this, something a bit personal for you, because as a Palestinian in Jordan, you know the reality of being separated from your country. The Nakba was 76 years ago now, and there are still more than 2 million Palestinians in Jordan today, and it really feels like history is repeating itself. What do you think when you think of Palestinians facing the reality of leaving Gaza, knowing that they may never, ever return?
This has been 16 months of agony for Palestinians, and not just because of the genocide in Gaza, but I think because for all of us, it has awakened our transgenerational trauma of the Nakba, which we all knew never ended in 1948, right? We always say as Palestinians, Nakba is a continuum. But the genocide in Gaza kind of awakened all of the trauma, all of the pain and the real sense of loss. And to see that compounded with a new policy, an international edict, if you will, that tells Palestinians, okay, you're in a condemned site, you have no connection to this place, we can just move you and put you somewhere else, and you need to be grateful for that. It's 1947 all over again, and much more than that, right? Because it's taken Palestinians since the Nakba to re-educate the world, to reintroduce themselves to the world, for the people that we are, an industrious people, a creative people, a people full of life, loving life, trying to hold on to it against all odds, and getting that recognition. And now you have this leader who can bully everybody into submission, or at least he hopes he can, who dismisses all of that, just brushes it aside, and once again treats Palestinians as rootless groups of people who are expendable. It's traumatic, to say the least. And I know that already, even before Trump, everybody that left Gaza is traumatized and has survivor's guilt and wants to go back as soon as they can to now face the possibility that they're not going to be allowed is unbearable.
And that's the take. Look, there's so much happening right now, particularly in the Middle East. What stories are you looking at? What would you like to see us cover? Maybe you know someone who would be a great guest on the show. Please let us know. We're always excited to read the comments. The best ideas come from you, so let us know. We'll be back tomorrow.